What's happening, guys, and welcome back to another Sunday Scan. We have a little bit different of a format this week. I'm out of town for a wedding, so I'm going to use this scan to go over some more topics and some concepts instead of just focusing on what has been moving in the market and what are the watches for ahead. I'll include some of that stuff, especially more in the written part of Scan this week. But I just wanted to take the time to really walk through a couple of ideas of not only how to build your own watch list, but also how to recognize themes and trends in the market. And then what are a couple of setups that have been working really well that the market has been rewarding. And I'll kind of walk through those so that when you recognize them, you can better incorporate them into your own trading if that's something that you're interested in. But before we get into all that, just a couple of things to get us going, and that is Traders for a Cause tickets. The early bird tickets have officially sold out, so thank you for everyone who purchased a ticket for that. You'll have an amazing time at the event, and there are still tickets available for the regular Traders for a Cause event, but the early bird tickets, which have a slight discount to them, they are sold out. So if you still haven't picked up a ticket, I recommend that you do so before the regular tickets also sell out, which they will, and they have every single year. So that was great to see. So let's get right into it. A couple of things that I really wanted to focus on this week were how to narrow down a watch list. And, with Sunday Scan and with, the room, there's so many ideas put out there that I wanted to spend some time on, like, how do you prioritize those ideas for you? Because, I might have 10 different things that are on watch, or Nate might have 10 different things that are on watch and someone else. And it's really not so much about just having a ton of things on your screen all the time, but it's more about being exposed to setups, ideas, and types of stocks and types of movers that you can then go and narrow down to what fits your style. And so just a couple of pointers of how to do that is to really get specific and categorize things. What kind of trader are you, and what kind of trades are you looking for? Are you interested in more large caps? Are you interested in options? Are you interested in mid caps or small caps? Are you more long biased or short biased? Do you like to trend things for several days, or are you looking for mean reversion types of plays where you're looking for a turn in the stock and to fade it down? And so to really be able to narrow down what your watch list is very helpful. And the way that I do that personally is that I categorize my trades. And when I get ideas from other people, or when I'm looking at ideas in the market, I really try to just focus on what are my strengths, what are the things that I like to trade, and then how do I get as many of those potential opportunities in front of me as possible. And then when the trading day starts, you narrow down that list even more. And so if initially I have 15 ideas or things that are moving in the market, I might be comfortable trading 8 of those if they play out. And then, as the day opens and things start moving, maybe it gets down to 2 or 3 names that actually look like they set up the way that I thought that they were going to. And when you have a thesis on something, and when it's moving the way that you thought it would, those are the ones to lean into. And what I mean by that is just it's like a filter process of basically starting broad and then going narrow, and as something is moving the way that you think that it would, or thought that it would, those are the ones that you have a good read on. And the things that you have a good read on are the things that you are very likely to have a good trade on, because you kind of already know why they're moving. You kind of know the expected range of them. You know the area where you would be potentially taking profits, or where you would be cutting your losses. And so that's just a great way to not only build your own watch list, but as you're getting information from other people, it's a way to narrow it down and make it specific for you, and really lean into your own strengths, because something that I might be very comfortable with, or Nate or Stan or someone else, that might be their style and what they're comfortable with. But if it's not what you're comfortable with, then that's not the right thing to really focus on, unless you are trying to develop new strategies and learn some things from them. Or from me as well. So that's just something I wanted to talk about. And then also just with trading setups in general, something that I like to do for my own trading is understanding the life cycle of that trade. And I've talked about this a little bit in the past, but what that really means is, when you are looking to trade something, do you understand kind of who is in there and why it's moving? Is it shorts are hammering into something and it's staying trappy, and so eventually you have a squeeze out? Is it like a liquidity trap where it has a huge volume day up, consolidates, and then either squeezes out or fails? Is it like a trend that's building and it's like a slow process at the beginning, and as it speeds up, and then it kind of has a parabolic, and then it's done? Or is it something where it's like a dip buy, or like the right side of the V, where something is crashing and it's very oversold, and you're looking for a capitulation level against a key support line, and then you're looking for higher lows and starting to build it up, and looking for shorts to get off sides and for it to build. So there's just so many different setups out there. And I would encourage everyone that if you already have a setup that you trade well, or a couple of them, to really just try to visualize what is happening and why those setups work and what are the key variables to them. And then that's a great way to kind of improve and refine those setups, whether it's with options or equity or long or short or mean reversion or trending style. So I'm just trying to put these ideas out there to help basically categorize and understand the trades that you are good at, the trades that you like, and kind of understanding why you like them, why they work, who's in there, and how to really optimize those trades. And that can make just a dramatic difference in performance, instead of trying to catch every single move or trading something just because someone else is trading it, even though if it doesn't fit into your own style. So that was another topic that I wanted to touch on. And then just a couple of themes in the market. We've had a ton of action this year, just in many different sectors. And I would say that one of the themes of this year, obviously we've had the AI trend and things like that, but I think we've had good groupings or good trends that play out for months at a time. And AI is kind of the quintessential example of that. But we also have pockets where other things are in strong trends. And that could be things like crypto, either, riding the way up with Bitcoin, or kind of fading the way down. Like we saw, Nate was prepared for a couple of trades recently where that came in with things like IREN and a couple of other names. And then, kind of as crypto picks back up, then knowing which names have relative strength versus weakness to focus on. Yeah, I think in the market, that's one of the main themes of this year, is that things, groupings of stocks, whatever the common denominator is between them, whether it's a sector, whether it's, small caps, whether it's high short interest stocks, or whatever it is, they've grouped together well, and there's been good volume, and really a lot of the edge is sticking with those trends while they're in play, because there's just so many periods in the market where the market's just kind of choppy and things are drifting and there's no clear trends. And so when there are those trends there are things to take advantage of, whether it's trending them or whether it's kind of waiting for them to get overextended and then looking for those mean reversion types of trades. And another theme is just small caps. We weren't sure if this summer was going to be a small cap summer or not. But so far, just the volume has been incredible. And I honestly think that, crypto has had a bit of a dip over the last month or, month and a half. And I think that some of that speculative capital that was really floating around in the altcoins and some areas like that, I think that they really came to the small cap land, and they are part of what's responsible for the increased volume. That pile of speculative money that's always looking for the next hot thing, the next thing that's moving. And, sometimes it's in crypto, sometimes it's in NFTs, sometimes it's somewhere else. But right now it seems to be in small cap stocks. And that's great for small cap traders, whether you're a short trader or a long bias trader for the most part. So that's great. And then just a couple of setups that I wanted to get into to kind of, demonstrate a few of these ideas are as follows. So we've had, relative strength and relative weakness is kind of a theme and a setup that I look for over and over again. And all that means is that, if there's a trend taking place, or, as the day starts and the market's kind of neutral, what is unusually strong? And what is acting like it's unusually strong? Many times they're names that have recent news, a recent catalyst, or there's something in the market that's shifting, and so maybe it's like rotation into a new set of names. And you can see a really good example of that with something like Amazon, where just how it's been in the channel for a while, and then you see as it starts to break out, this volume change down here. And then the character change as it starts to break out, as it makes new highs, as it's holding those those candles, just one after another. And you can see that this is unusually strong. And so these are the names with really with relative strength. And a couple of good ways to kind of size that up is to see if they're strong off the open, how they handle dips. Do they soak right back up? Are they building over VWAP? Is there a lot of green volume? So basically, is the volume coming in stronger than normal, and is it holding those higher candles? And that's a great sign that a trend is in motion until it starts to get a little bit too extended, and then maybe you flip the bias for a mean reversion, but we'll get into that later. So Amazon was just a great example kind of in the large cap space where something that I look for with potentially calls or sometimes equity is just what are the names that, maybe a couple days a week or just for that day, what is just acting very, very strong. And those are the names that it's like they want to go up anyway. And if the market kind of is going up too, it helps it along. But even if the market dips, then these names just kind of stall a little bit, but they don't really go down that much. And so it's a great way, at least on the long side, to participate in those trends with minimal headaches. It's just kind of like the path of least resistance. What is trying to go up anyway? And I'm just trying to join that, based off of key levels or based off of dips, and then using the low of that candle to really participate. And then comparing that with something that's relatively weak, which is actually related to Amazon, but it is PDD. And we saw this, the China names, we've been keeping track of these, how China is still a mess. A lot of their stocks have been doing horribly for the last couple of years. But you had some names like PDD that was previously showing relative strength, where it's like even if the economy in China was stalling out and the other names were kind of flushing, this was holding up pretty well until Amazon announced that they are going to be doing some of the same things that PDD or Temu, the company, it's kind of like a cheap items being sold. It's kind of like a very cheap version of Amazon. Amazon announced that they're going to be doing basically their own version of Temu, and so they're going to be eating their lunch. And so once that news came out, you start to see this relative weakness where it's breaking below key levels. And all of those, swipe tests or all those candles, they just get stuffed back down, and it's making lower highs, lower lows, and you can just see the volume profile changes. It's mostly red volume, and it's just very consistent, and it's holding those candles. So it's really just, in contrast, the relative strength versus the relative weakness. And those are the names when I'm trying to trend something or basically just join what it's doing. Those are the names that I'm looking for because it's the path of least resistance. What is naturally trying to go down anyway because there was news or something changed, and what is naturally trying to go up anyway. And those are the types of trends that I like to join because I'm just participating in a move. I'm not trying to force a trade or make anything happen. I'm just observing a new trend is in place, a strong one, and I'm joining that. So that was just a concept I wanted to go over with relative strength and relative weakness. And now another one that I want to go over is MLGO. And this is kind of the concept of the trappy names. And we talked about this a little bit last week, how I think I used this one as an example. Whereas with liquidity traps, it's rare that they have that kind of first day, huge volume day, huge spike and then fade off by 75% and then come all the way back. And usually they stuff kind of way before here, but MLGO is a little bit of a unique company because this is one of the potential liquidation trades where you have insiders or other people who control most of the float. So it's not exactly natural price action that you're seeing. So I probably should have used a different name as an example of that. But these are the names where the insiders lock most of the float. They bait shorts into really trying to hammer in. And then the shorts lock up half the float. The insiders have the other half. And then they can basically move it up to, wherever they want to. And then they'll eventually have a big exit. So I just want to zoom in on this one a little bit and just talk about, what is this kind of trappy action that Nate was talking about? And these are things that I look for, potential like the perpetual squeezes. And so if you look, you can see that we have these names that have a really strong move up, and they kind of just are holding those higher lows here, here, here. But you have that in combination with these kind of really crappy names that everyone is looking to fade. And especially if they have a history of fading sharply in the past, then those are the names where people are like, I had a huge trade on this last time. I know that this went up to 20 and then back down to 3 over the course of a couple of days. And so you have all these people kind of waiting to get in on this trade, and they'll start in and it kind of will flush and then it'll come back. And they'll add in a little bit more and it'll flush and it'll come back. And that happens over the course of a day or a couple of days. And you basically just have shorts now. Every time it dips, they are starting to cover a little bit. You have new shorts adding in, and it just starts to build a lot of tension. But it's all people who are basically either insiders waiting to dump eventually, or it's short sellers that are fighting with themselves until basically the insiders turn off the liquidity and basically dump the shares. And so these are some names that you can have trades on the long side, but you have to use small size, and you have to use what I prefer is hard stops with names like these, because they can flush so quickly. So there's significant risk with these on the long side, but even if you're not participating long, you can at least understand what's happening on the short side. And maybe to avoid it until it really has a parabolic move, and then it looks like potentially the insiders are dumping. But again, whenever you're shorting names like this that have a manipulated float, or there's unusual action, it's a gamified tape. These are the ones that you have to be very careful of, because they can have the outlier risk where they might look like they're going to unload the shares, but then they just swipe back up and they can go circuit to circuit, and it can be devastating for people who are trying to short it. So just something that I wanted to demonstrate with like the trappy kind of action. Look for stocks that everyone's trying to basically short, especially if there's high insider ownership, or if the float is controlled and they can make it gamified. They can hold those higher lows until they eventually want to dump it. But just look for those higher lows, look for those candles getting soaked back up, and then the eventual kind of blowouts, and then they'll start to sit back, and you could potentially have a trend change happening then. But it's really up to the people who control most of the float when that happens. And then finally, the last thing, or the last kind of like trade setup that I wanted to talk about was, the monthly options kind of unwinds, and NVIDIA is just a great example of this. So I figured I'd pull it up, and eventually we could have a trade like this on some other names, like maybe Amazon or some of those, as they build up over the next week or few weeks, and they might have a big unwind at some point. But just with NVIDIA, you usually have something that has a very strong trend, something that is in motion for a while, so that premium can build up. The options premium, the weak hands are still all in there on the long side, and then you get up to a point where you have a huge options expiration, and that is usually on a Thursday or a Friday, and you basically have the stock, it tries to go up, and eventually it just stalls out, and then it flushes. And once that flush happens, you kind of have that process of the options are now not getting back to what they were, and the options are starting to decay faster. They're getting further out of the money, and that adds a lot of pressure to the stock. And so you can really see that a huge character change in these names when they go from the calls and the buyers really driving it up until you get close to the expiration somewhere in here, and then it starts to reverse, and all those calls start to come off, and then you can have a multi-day sell-off following that, unless it's super sharp, and then maybe it all happens in one day, but usually it takes a while to kind of reset the tape. But yeah, once you see that action start to happen where it flushes down, it stays very weak, all pops get stuffed, and you can really just hold these trend lines if you're either swing shorting it, or if you're using put options, and if you're in and out during the day. But those are just some names and some setups that can really have an impact on your profit and loss as a trader, just being familiar with a couple things like that. And there's dozens of other setups that work, but I just wanted to highlight a couple that I use consistently over time, and it really is a benefit to my trading. And now on to a short main watches section. We won't get too into it, but before we get into that, I have to give the disclaimer that I am not a financial advisor, and these are not buy or sell recommendations. This is for informational and educational purposes only. And then the t-shirt winners, before we get into the main watches, are Miss Payne 2001, and Giant Human 3315. Congrats to you both. You left great comments in the comment section last week, and we encourage people to leave key takeaways and comments in the comment section, and we will pick a couple of winners every week. So you can email webmaster@investorsunderground.com to claim those prizes. And now on to the main watches. So the first name that's really on watch this week is ARM. We've talked about this having relative strength in the AI sector. And so again, when you have a trend that's in place and when you have a name that's acting strong and it's holding those key levels and the volume changes and it's building bullishly, that's what I'm looking for to possibly be breaking the highs in the near future. So ARM is on watch. But again, the sector might need a little bit of time to kind of digest. But while other names are digesting and kind of staying stagnant, ARM is showing relative strength where it's continuing to build up. So that is on watch for me in the upcoming week with calls. And then onto Tesla. This has had a big character change over the last month or so, and it's really starting to act a lot better than it has been in the rest of the year. And one of the things that we talked about kind of previously in the year is that higher interest rates, they really weigh on businesses like this that are having to build things. And now that we are getting to a point where the Fed is thinking about cutting interest rates, and it looks like we're kind of past that peak, and Tesla is starting to level out, you're starting to see some money flow back into it. You had some of the compensation things with Elon. They're in the process of getting resolved, but you have a couple of things that were holding it back before are starting to not hold it back as much. And so it's starting to definitely break out. And so Tesla is on watch. You can see how it's building above these key channels. And I think that it's going to be over 200 fairly soon. And maybe 210 or 220 as long as the market holds up. So that is a name that I have on watch for the upcoming week. And again, off the open, if it's acting strong, if it has a couple days a week where it's really just seeing some bullish call flow, it's holding those higher lows, it's acting strong, it's holding candles. Those are the names that I'm looking for potentially calls off of the open, or you could do equity as well using either the low a day or a prior candle low as kind of your stop, as long as it's a significant level and not just a random level on the chart. DJT, this is a name that I have on watch for the upcoming week as well. This had a nice run up, and we actually talked about how as this name unwound with some of the insider filing showing that they could have the ability to sell, we saw it flush down to this key level, and we were watching for either a continuation down if there was actual insider selling, or for a bounce off this key level if there was not insider selling. And so we saw a pretty significant bounce from 25 up to 40, and this is leading up into the debates and everything like that. And so this is on watch for the next week to see how it reacts with all that. Does it, after the debates, does it fade back down? Is it starting to act relatively weak, or was something said, and does this continue to build, and does it test that 50 level or so before eventually leveling out? But this is on watch for either relative strength or relative weakness. And then Google, we talked about Google last week, I believe, having a nice breakout, and that started to play out. And again, it's more looking at some of the, not necessarily the daily charts, but it could be kind of a daily setup or whatever time frame you're looking at, and just to see what looks good on the daily, and then what looks good on the intraday, and then what has relative strength and what has a theme, because we've been seeing some rotation from just the AI names into some of the more traditional Magnificent Seven names, which Google is kind of both. How it's been a traditional huge name, huge tech name that's been a part of most of the large tech portfolios for the last couple of years, but I think it has some good things going for it with its valuation that make it attractive to pivot into kind of away from the AI sector, but still maintaining that exposure to it. And so Google is on watch for relative strength. And then a couple other things, just GME and CHWY kind of in the same basket. We had Roaring Kitty, post a picture of a dog, and people were saying it's Chewy and other things. And there's the Ryan Cohen connection between GameStop and Chewy. So, who knows what's happening with these things? But I think that if he does have a position in Chewy, then GameStop could suffer from that because the attention is off of GameStop, and it could start showing relative weakness. But unless that's kind of explicitly said or the actions confirming it, it's just kind of an idea to have out there. And then just with Chewy, kind of same thing. When he announced it, huge spike, and then the options got off sides. Then they hedged. Then it kind of puttered out and had that fade down. But both of these names, it's not that they're set up right now, but they will be both on watch for what develops with that. And does he pivot into Chewy? Does it kind of start the whole cycle again? And then does GameStop go down, or does he say he's staying with GameStop and then Chewy fades back to where it was or lower? So those are just a couple of names that I have on watch for the upcoming week, and there will be some more in the written section of Scam. So that's pretty much it for me, guys. I hope that some of these concepts were helpful to you. I'm going to a wedding this weekend, so I'll be busy with that, but I will be finishing up the written part for this, and then I will see you all in the chat. And then on the upcoming week, we have a half day on, I believe, Tuesday, and then we're off on Wednesday for the 4th of July. I think I have those dates right, but the day before the 4th of July, it's a half day. Market closes at 1 p.m. And then on the 4th of July, the market is closed for that day. So I hope that you guys have a great holiday, a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you in chat. Thank you everyone for watching. If you want to trade live alongside me and other members of the Investors Underground community, then check out investorsunderground.com to see if becoming a member is the right decision for you. They have some of the best technology and a lot of great members there, all looking to help other people improve their trading. And also check out Investors Underground content on YouTube and Twitter. Thank you.